WWF and WCW legend, New Japan Wrestling legend, my friend of 20 years, Mr. Bryan Clark. Bryan, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
Never better, my friend. Zane, you want to say hi to Bryan?
Well, hello. Very nice to have you on. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to help us out.
Absolutely, guys. No problem. I see you have some questions to fire away, so get it rolling.
Bryan, hey, listen, and I know your history, but the people out there, some of them may not know the beginnings of Bryan Clark. Can you tell me two things? Number one, what hooked you or made you decide to be a professional wrestler, and where did you go to get your initial training?
When I was in the military, I think, right out of high school, I joined the military, and from there, while I was serving overseas, and then even back in the stateside, it was really picking up. This was like the mid to late 80s, and I think I got hooked on it just like a lot of people did. But I wanted to actually do it, not just be a fan of it. And so after I served my time in the military, I actually walked on a football scholarship at Central Missouri State. And from there, I actually met Ox Baker, who he's an old-timer, but had a phenomenal look. Ox didn't really train me. He just introduced me to the business. Actually moved to Atlanta and was trained by Jody Hamilton and Sarge Dwayne Bruce.
Well, that's what I understood too, is that Ox kind of put you in the right direction. And, I often joke around and say I was afraid of one man in my life, and he went by the name of Dad. And then I confessed that, well, maybe Ox Baker was one of them too. But he was a big threatening dude back in the day, wasn't he? What
the greatest look, I think, long before the Stone Cold and all the other looks that came along, but, he was in State from New York with Kurt Russell. He just had a look, man. I don't see how, one was that Ox was never known for his working in-ring stuff. It was always his look, his voice and everything. To me, but that could have translated, I always thought, to bigger movies. Just could have been a lot more with him,
Yeah, I thought his looks were good, but I've seen a couple of promos of Ox Baker. One he cut on Lou Thez, and I think that he was a hell of a promo man before that was a big deal.
Absolutely, yeah. You can pull up some of his old stuff on YouTube. It's still there. And his voice just carries. I mean, you know how he is in one room. You can hear him all over the building. It was just amazing. And you couldn't tell if he was really pissed off or not unless you knew it. Right.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to travel on the road with him and Tom Brandy back in the day. And I remember pulling into a rest stop and Ox setting up, basically setting up a table and trying to sell gimmicks at the rest stop, man.
Yeah, one of my first shows, and I'll tell you another brutal story. You know how he is. I don't tell you, but same thing he did sort of like that with me. But when I was in college, still playing football and trying to wrestle, get my feet wet, we did a show up in Iowa somewhere, and I had a Chevy Blazer, and I knew we would take turns driving to the show. I remember I woke up and it was like the truck was like in low or something. What's going on? And I look over, he's been driving for like an hour and a half with the truck in like a lower gear. Just crap like that, man. You're like, what? You're trying to blow my truck up? I'm not going to make the show,
That's crazy
times,
stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Hey, listen, you're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com. Drew Skills, you got a question for my buddy, Bryan Clark?
Yeah, hey, Bryan, thanks for coming on, buddy. It's great to get to talk to you. I know you got started pretty early in your career with AWA. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that actually sort of ties into, we were just talking about Ox Baker. Ox actually got me, a couple of those shots. As they were just about closing the doors in that company, I hadn't even been trained. The training I got was in the college locker room, gymnasium type thing back at Central Missouri. So again, I hadn't been trained other than, as bad as it sounds, just some tie-ups in the Ox's living room. Really nothing at all compared to what I would get later, But yeah, I got a couple shots with those guys before they folded.
Awesome.
Zane, you got anything for Bryan Clark before I jump in and take over the entire show with him?
We kind of go chronologically, so I definitely will have a couple questions about WCW later on. But we're kind of skipping forward just a little bit. When you started with the WWF, you were brought in with Johnny Polo. and as most of our listeners will know, as Raven. And then Harvey Whippleman or Downtown Bruno took over. What was it like working with a young upstart Raven, and then working with a guy that had been around forever, like Downtown Bruno?
I think the biggest thing was, Polo, which was Raven. He's in the party mode in like 93, 94, 95 when we first got up there, whereas Bruno was more laid back and not in the mode, so it was hard, I try to keep my manager, so to speak, with Polo. He seemed to get himself in trouble at times. But that's just part of being young and being up there, you live on the road, so it'll work itself out.
And Q, I'll cut in later on because I have some questions about Blood Runs Cold, but we'll hold on to those.
Okay.
Say those.
Listen, I wanted to mention something about the character of Bryan Clark, and I'll give you an example. 1995, he was getting pushed as Adam Bomb and WWF at the time, and we were fortunate enough. We ran a independent show at Fairfax County High School. And through Jim Cornette or whoever, we brought Bryan in, and he came in as Adam Bomb, and he wrestled a Vader clone, Big Slam, in the main event. But the thing that I remember the most about you, Bryan, do you know what that is?
I don't know. Hit me with it.
I'll hit you with it. You walked into that locker room, and you were the biggest star in there, but you walked up to every guy in that locker room, including me, and you shook their hand, and you introduced yourself by your real name and who you were. And brother, I was so impressed that a guy like you, who came in there from being on top, would introduce himself in the right way in a locker room with 20 independent guys who, at that particular point, none of us had went to WWE or WCW. And I was so impressed with that stuck with me. And that's been 20 years. Next month, 20 years. And it stuck with me that long. And,
wow.
and you and I have been in touch since then, and you've been doing a lot of acting stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your acting career, how it's taken off, and the movies that you've done?
I'll answer your first part of that thing about, as far as, that's just what I was taught, and just respect and stuff for going in the locker room. That's what you do. You don't go in, you don't get your own locker room and get away from everybody. Go in and meet the boys, shake the hands, introduce yourself. That's just the way I was taught, and I think a lot of that, maybe the older school guys like that too, but I think it's just the way you do it. Acting wise, it's been a little hit and miss with it. I'm not banking everything on that by any means. But I have had some, things that have keep coming my way. I, actually got a really good agent out in LA, and I'm lucky that I live in Phoenix, so it's really close by if I have something comes up. But, I've done a few things, and I've read for some stuff, and, just read for some, Walking Dead.
Beautiful.
Stuff. So it just, it's a tough business as far as acting goes. You just have to be what they're looking for. So, if it happens, great. I'm not losing sleep over it, but again, if there's something there, definitely I would do it. And if it's right for me, I'll do it. There have been a couple things I actually turned down because I just didn't think it would be beneficial at all, but, so that's that.
And that speaks volumes about your character. If it's not right for you, you're not going to accept it. Tell us a little about, because I went to WCW and I worked out at the power plant. Tell us a little bit about working out with Jody Hamilton or with Sarge.
Well, when I went there, this was in about 1990. So there was no power plant. It was, down in far south Jonesboro. There was an old carpet warehouse.
Right.
There was one ring in it, and, there was Sarge, Jody, I think, and there might have been a couple other guys that were still trying to break into business at the time, and one or two other trainers, but they weren't even trainers; they were just guys helping out. But Sarge and Jody did the majority of it. That's why I always say that's the guys who trained, because they did. But yeah, back then, man, Sarge had no problem with suplexing out of my boots every day. Not a problem. He just was on me hard, but it helped me a lot. And I always give credit to him because he worked with me a lot and really helped me.
You know what I always say about Sarge? Either he made you or he broke you. There's no in between.
Yep,
you know,
that's right.
And that's a credit to him because, you know, when we got in, I mean, I got in a bit before you, but in the same decade. And, you know, the business was so protected back then that you weren't going to get it unless you're willing enough to tough it out and put up with what they put you through. There's just no way you were going to be in the business, you know, and I think that's the difference between now and today. We protected the business so much more back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, and being able to, work when you're hurt or just to keep pushing, you know, to get through a 25 or a 28 day loop, you know, there's no, well, I don't feel good, I'm going to go home today. You know, there's none of that stuff. So, yeah, you had to be mentally and physically and mentally tough just to get through some of those tours. No doubt. It's different.
Yeah, I don't think guys understand what it's like to work 25 straight days for Vince McMahon or 28 days out of the month. And the couple days that you might be lucky enough to be home, you're collapsed and you're worthless to anybody. You know, you're just trying to recover. It was just a brutal schedule, even for the guys. You know, some of us did enhancement work when they were in the Northeast for, you know, a month or two straight. It was just really rough stuff. I can't imagine, you know, being on top what it was like. Bryan, can you tell us what the end was for you at WWF and why you made the big change to go to WCW?
Well, you know, there were a few different things. Injuries had a little bit of a role to play in it for a couple of different times where I had surgery and stuff and I needed to have surgery, and they basically just like, no, we need you to keep going. And I couldn't even raise my left side of my arm. My shoulder was ripped completely. There was that. That was one of the things. A couple other things just lied to right to my face where they could have just said, hey, we're not going to do this. We're going to push this person. We want you to put this person over. I never had any problems with that kind of stuff, but the whole lying to me and stuff, that pretty much sealed it for me. And I knew that I had a job with Bischoff in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta the whole time, even when I was in New York.
Right.
But I just sort of, he basically, I ran into him a few different times and we knew some of the same people, and he just basically said, when you're done there, you come over here, not a problem. So, that made me feel good in the fact that, he did see, my talent, you know, what he could do with it.
Right. Well, I don't know how you can see the talent with a guy 6'10" and 320 pounds and ripped. Call me crazy, but I don't know how you see that talent.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a
I like to fly around a little bit too, you know, so that helps. And a lot of guys were afraid of the top rope, you know. Won't call them names, but a lot of those top guys wouldn't go up top, you know what I mean?
Sure. You don't have to be a psychic to predict that, but you know what? I tell people, listen, when Jimmy Cicero and I, Jimmy's probably 6'2", I'm 6'3", we landed in WWF back in 97, 98. It was the land of the giants. I mean, guys were your size and bigger. It was common. And I don't think people understand that.
Yeah, you really had to make yourself stand out and look different. You know, like I said, because I was a guy that was so big back then, and whatever your gimmick was, you had to try to be innovative with it, like with the Adam Bomb thing. You know, I add as much as I could to it, even though they owned it and trademarked it, but like with the contact lens and all those things where the eyes were yellow and stuff, that was all my ideas. And I pitched to Vince and he's, okay, let's do that. But you have to really be on top of every little thing, every aspect that you can possibly try to control, or it's something you can have a say in, always helps to know, you know what I mean? You help get yourself over.
Right. Didn't they bill you originally from like 3 Mile Island?
Yeah. Harrisburg, I think. Harrisburg, 3 Mile Island, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Everybody's like,
right.
You know, I didn't know. Yeah, they were like, everybody's like, I knew you were from Pennsylvania. I was like, well, I'm not.
It was actually called PPU, Pennsylvania Public Utilities, and I invested a ton of money in it. And when they had the meltdown, I lost a fortune. But we don't need to talk about that.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Zane, you want to fire something at my friend Bryan Clark?
Well, yeah, when they gave you the goggles to wear and everything, did you have the input into anything that you were wearing into the ring, or did they just give you, they already had it sketched out when they brought you in?
Well, they had it sketched out, but they sent me those sketches probably 2 months before I debuted. And then once I got there and did 1 or 2 sets of TVs, that's where they would do it. You know, that I would have my debut and that kind of stuff. But then I started adding stuff to it, like the red tongue and the yellow contacts to try to make it look like this guy had some type of radiation, blah, 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 But like the merchandising aspect, believe it or not, I had an outside company in Atlanta. I took all my ideas and stuff and just sort of had an outline. And I had this company in Atlanta put together a merchandise little package. And I took it to Vince and he popped and, put this on shirts, this on hats, this on the little footballs, all that shit. And he did it, because it was good stuff. I mean, the colors were neat and, just a good thing to sell. But little things like that, I tried to control as much as I could.
And, when you got your first action figure, did that, did you know that you had made it at that point, or did that not matter to you?
I don't know about making it because, to me that was, 93, 94, 95, going into 96 were really lean years. I don't know, people don't really think about that, but that's when Vince had just gotten off the hook from the big steroid trial. And, you had Nash as your champion and a few other guys. Just the houses were down. It was just, the money was bad. And that's why a lot of guys left. And of course the big turnaround in like 96, 7, 8. But, it was lean times, honestly. I don't know if a lot of people admit that, but definitely were, in that era.
And you know what, Brian?
I don't know if I felt that, back to the question of the action figure, if I felt I made it or not. I don't really think so. I think when I signed my big deals, my big contracts in Atlanta, that's when I felt like I made it money-wise. That was the key for me, at least, that part of it.
Brian, can you tell us a little bit? You talked about, part of the reason for the jump was the being lied to. Can you tell us some of the differences in working between the two top companies? Obviously being on the road with the boys is being on the road with the boys, but being at the shows and actually dealing with the two companies, what were some of the differences?
Well, now just sort of going back to what I'd said, when, like 93, 4, 5 were really leading years. And then I went to WCW Atlanta. And to me, I could, this is just me. I'm just giving you my perspective, is that I could go and talk to Eric anytime I wanted to, just about, not unless he was in some big meeting or something. I would go up to his bus, or he would meet me in the office, in the arena, wherever. I've had a question, even about that particular show, that Monday Nitro. I could ask him about something, or how he wanted to go with something. Whereas Vince is just the opposite. You have to sit. I've told people this before, they're like, I think I'm bullshitting, but it's like you sit outside in a chair waiting to see the principal or something. You take a half hour, 30, 40 minutes, and then go ask him some question he's not even paying attention. That just, that was my experience. I preferred Atlanta much better, yes.
Right on. You talked about Nash being the champion there during that time frame. I've heard you say before in other interviews that you actually are the one that coined them the Click.
You know what? And I've heard a lot of other people say that they did it, and maybe they did. I know that I definitely, said that numerous times to guys I was traveling with at the time, with Billy Gunn and the Smoking Guns and those guys. Some of the guys I'd traveled with, Bob Holly, and just different people. I know we all joked about it and talked about it. So who actually came up with it? Can I say that I thought I did? But I heard someone say that Bigelow came up with it. So who knows where it actually was stated first? So I don't know. It's possible. Definitely a possibility. So
awesome. Hey, Brian, tell us about when you debuted the character Wrath.
The first or the second time? The first one was Blood Runs Cold. First time. That was it was really like a takeoff of Mortal Kombat, and that's what Eric wanted to do. So he wanted me to be a part of that, and I was like, okay, because he'd signed me, and I was there for at least 3 years, no matter what. So I agreed, and I said, okay, well, let's do this, and he put me in it. And I actually, honestly, for about the first year of that contract, I spent like in a dojo doing karate and judo and all that stuff to blend in for this gimmick to work. And then we signed in the other guys, Ernest Miller and a couple other guys, Ray Lloyd and Chris Canyon, and that formed the whole little group there. I wasn't crazy about it, but I knew business was business, and that was just one of those times I said, okay, this is what we're doing, and I went with it. I felt that the second coming of Wrath definitely was a lot better, and that was really my my vision of Wrath, the second one.
Right. Now that first one, Bryan, you mentioned a couple names that are synonymous with, to me, to guys that were just phenomenal. Number one, Canyon. I mean, what a great guy was he. You know, it's,
Right.
it's sad that people remember the end versus, you know, the whole career. And, you know, when you became Wrath the second time, they hooked you up with another friend of mine who's no longer with us, and talk to us a little bit about that.
Now second time is Wrath as a single, correct?
No, well, second time was Wrath, the tag team.
Okay, so Canyon and I tagged, and then I went on Wrath as a single for like a 6 or 8 month winning streak.
Right.
And then, tore my ACL, and I was out for a while. When I came back as a tag team, we put together a tag team called KroniK. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
With Bryan Adams.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I was sitting at home recovering from an ACL. Females have one of those, they know how that is. But I was about 9 months out with that. I was about ready to come back, and Bryan called me and said, hey, I'm thinking about, I said, I don't know if he was out for an injury or was they repackaging him or something at the time. He called me and asked me about it. And so I agreed, and I was like, yeah, okay. And, because I wasn't really sure, but I thought, you know, this might work. And of course, I thought it worked really well for the time that it was allowed to run. You know, it's been great to put it together, you know, longer. But, it was love working with him, absolutely. In and out of the ring, great person.
Yeah, he was a great guy indeed. And, you know, I trained in Hawaii, and of course everybody was aware of him, and, you know, what a super guy. But, so tell us what you're doing now.
Well, I really, once we were bought out, I didn't do anything, and then we went back out for one little short run in 2001, which was right before 9/11. I had crushed a vertebrae in my neck, up there, and, just was not healthy at all. I don't think Bryan was healthy either, lower back wise. Just was, you know, just not healthy. You know, if you're not healthy, you can't work. And so
Right.
that didn't really work out. And we recovered a little bit and went over to Japan for a while. And then once we finished up there, I took about, I don't know, maybe a year or so off, just to do anything to search myself healthy. And I moved out to Arizona and, took a job, at a hotel casino resort. And I was there for 11 years. I just finished up, this past May.
Wow.
So yeah, use the old college degree a little bit, hotel restaurant management.
Wow.
But, it was a good time. So.
Beautiful.
Do you follow the current product, Bryan? Do you follow the current product now?
Occasionally I will not record it or have to see a pay-per-view or something, but I will look at a couple of websites on the internet, and occasionally I'll catch the Monday night show. Rarely do I see the Thursday show, Thursday show, Friday, excuse me. I do watch it occasionally. I got an idea of what's going on, but I don't live and breathe it like I used to.
For sure. What are some of your thoughts when you watch it?
Oh man, I don't know. Because I'm friends with guys that were there, and even like Justin Roberts, a good friend of mine. He was there. He just left. He's their ring announcer, and so
right.
I got a feel for what was going on. You know what I mean? Current product, and it's just so different. It's changed so much, and I don't know. Just a lot of differences of what it used to be like versus now. I can't put my finger on one thing. Yeah, I can't put my finger on one thing, but I just think it's just so different, it seems to me.
You're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com, and we're talking with Bryan Clark, better known as Adam Bomb or Wrath in WCW. Bryan, I thought Adam Bomb, and I know the situation, when you were given some creativity with that character, which was commonplace in the 80s, I think you did an amazing job with him and getting him over with, like you said, the colored contacts, the explosion. And I know that we brought you in on an independent show, and, we drew 1,590 paid people that night. We had another 300 comp to the Handicap Association. So we had 1,890 people in a building that seated 2,000, and it was jam-packed. and you did a great job for us, and you were a total professional. But the Atom Bomb character, in comparison, was that bigger than Wrath, or was it not bigger than Wrath?
Well, I think that personally I thought Wrath was better just because I went on such a run there when I came back the second time as Wrath. I went on such a run where, I was rolling through people for like probably close to 7 months in a row, and then finally Nash beat me in November because they were building me towards Goldberg. That's what they wanted to do, and then I don't know what happened with injuries or politics or what. They decided to go and have Nash beat me in November, and then in December he beat Goldberg. So Goldberg, I was undefeated, and then Goldberg was beaten. So I don't know what, I just felt like the Wrath character as far as being dominant and in the ring versus Atom Bomb. I thought, what people think as far as what the bigger one is hard to tell,
Right. Give us an idea of what's in the future for the next 5 years for Bryan Clark.
Well, I just had major surgery in May, so anybody
I know that, brother.
Next surgery, there you go, brother. I had 2 discs replaced, plate and fusion and everything. It has been harder to come back, but I can actually say that I'm back in the gym now 5 to 6 days a week, finally. It has been I'm at just about the 6-month mark, and it has been difficult just to get, I would go 2 and off 2 because I was sore and soreness and everything. And, back in the gym 3 days, miss 4, that kind of thing. And finally got to where I'm now. I'm consistent. That's the biggest thing is getting this neck healed up completely, and I definitely feel it's on the way. And I'll see what happens with LA if something comes up, But that's really sort of where I'm at now.
You and I kind of the same guy about as far as getting up super early and getting to the gym and getting it done,
Yeah.
Which I admire. I mean, I've seen so many times since we talked a lot, and I was very concerned about your neck surgery in May, and you seem to be back in the gym on a regular basis, and that's I think where somebody like you and myself may seek some solace also.
Yeah, to me it's working out is a sort of like a release too mentally also to get over hurdles and stuff, and it's almost therapeutic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But when I train, I don't do just weights and that's it and walk out. I stretch, I do cardio. I'm doing like 50 minutes every day of cardio. I stretch, train my abdominals, core training, and then I go to the weights and on down the line. But yeah, to me, you just have to have some kind of, you got to train basically a lifetime commitment, I think.
I think so. And, as we get older, it keeps us mobile and more fluid in what we do. And there's a saving grace to that. Zane, you want to fire a question to my friend, Bryan Clark?
Yeah, Bryan, once again, thanks for coming on. And we have had, Ernest Miller and Glacier and Sonny Ono on before, so it's cool that we've gotten one of the final living members of the Blood Runs Cold angle back on here with us for the first time. We really appreciate that. As I said earlier, I know you don't seem to be super pumped. You weren't super pumped about it. Was it odd though that they kind of segued you guys all together and Ernest, they had to train to be a wrestler. Did you help in his training at all with pro wrestling?
Absolutely. Ernest Miller, yes. I broke his ribs a couple of times. He complained. I chopped the shit out of him. He complained. No, Ernest he was a good guy. He's really talented. He's a karate expert. But yeah, we trained him. It took a while, but he got it, And then later on, you would get to see his comedy side of the stuff he would do later on in the business. But yeah, he worked out and he trained hard, and he was out in the power plant and we worked it, and that was part of the thing. We were in the we were in the dojos doing the judo, the karate, all that stuff. But I think that's what they had in mind, was to bring, that was from the beginning. They wanted to have, 2 heels, 2 faces, and then build them up for, some kind of Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then later on in your run in WCW, they brought Vince Russo in, and you and Bryan were heavily featured at that point. What are your thoughts on Vince Russo?
I don't have any problems with him. I always got along with him, and I know Bryan did. And he seemed to be definitely pushing the tag team, especially me and Bryan. But I'm not trying to sound to brag about this at all, but there were very few things around that time frame, 99 going into 2000, that were getting over. And we were one of the few things that they could put us out there and we would get a pop and it'd get over. There were a lot of things that were not getting over. So I think, he did see that. So he kept putting us out there, which was good for us, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did you have any problems with the marijuana references that were part of the KroniK tag team?
Not really. It didn't bother me. Bryan is the one that, you know, we didn't know what to come up with a name for ourselves. And I think Bryan asked some fans or something. So, somehow I don't know if he went on the internet and did a poll. I don't know what he did. But anyway, he came up and he said, well, what about this? And I said, well, sounds all right, you know. I knew there were other references to it and stuff, but we wanted to spin the K and spell it K-R-O-N-I-K, you know.
Right.
And so, they did that as, you know, the Jumbotron where the letters would spin and boom, 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 you know. But yeah, give Bryan the credit for that. He came up with it and we both like it. So, that's what happened there.
Well, and do you want to, when you were brought back into the WWF, I know that you weren't around, you were nursing an injury, right? When WWF bought WCW, is that correct?
Yeah, I think I was at home with my third or fourth concussion that I remember.
Okay.
That one was a chair shot from Animal that laced me open about 30 staples in the back of my head.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what was the feeling like when you went back to the WWF locker room once you and Bryan Adams were brought back to the WWF?
You know, I've said this before, and I'll say it again in this interview and stuff, but there were very few guys that were brought in from WCW in good faith saying, okay, we're going to push these guys and get them over. Yeah, we had ring rust. We weren't ready. There's a lot of things, injuries, like I told you about. But, you know, we need if you've been home for a year, you know, you go and you work the road at least a couple of weeks to get the rust off and get your timing back and stuff. And we just didn't have that opportunity. I just felt like there was not just me and Bryan, but other guys. If you look back through the history and go, okay, what happened to this guy? Why, you know, you can just see, boom, one after one after. Booker is the only one that, you know, one of the few guys that made it.
Mm-hmm. And my final question for you right now is, you know, I've seen some Facebook posts from you and I've heard some things. What can you explain to our listeners that might be confused? What's your stance on the concussion lawsuits that are going on against the WWE and Vince McMahon?
Well, I think someone has to take responsibility, at least acknowledge that, you know, for them to go around and the company just to say, oh, we've never had any concussions here in this company it's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many guys and so many different other sports, and our sport is, you know, without helmets. You know, there was no wellness program back when I was there. The wellness is get yourself well, you know. Yeah. I mean, you hurt, you worked hurt. That's just all there was to it. And for people that were there, they know, and they can go back, man, but I'm sure. But yeah, you cannot say there were not injuries and guys do not carry these injuries up to this very day because they do. That's all I'll say on it for now.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
How can our listeners follow you? I know that you have a Facebook page. So if our listeners go to Facebook and search Bryan, that's Bryan Clark. There's going to be a very handsome man with a white shirt on with a championship belt over his shoulder. They can find you there. Do you have a Twitter account, Instagram, anything like that?
No, I just keep it a little low key on the Facebook. It's easier for me, at least for now. Maybe at a later date I might add the Twitter and stuff, but for now I'm just going to stick with the Facebook. But yeah, I don't even like the people that I have on them now. They're probably, 3,000 or so. I add some occasionally, but yeah, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me right now. You know.
Bryan, do you still go out and do signings and conventions and stuff like that? Or are you still into doing those things?
You know, occasionally I do. Honestly, this sounds a little silly, but I'm pretty selective on them. I just, you if there's a big one or something, I do get calls. I've had guys call me in the East Coast trying to get me to do them. And I'll do them occasionally. I don't want to be, I traveled so much prior to settling down in Arizona, and just, it just has to be something really good for me to go do it. You know what I mean? And it's nothing, it's not wanting to see fans or to see people and stuff. I just, it's just so time consuming.
I think a funny thing here with Bryan is that I talked to you right before the Cauliflower Alley Club. And I said, I don't think I should go because I might punch somebody in the face. And you said,
that's probably true too.
You said that's exactly why I'm not going. And guys like you and me, Q, we shouldn't go to these things.
That's probably true. Yeah, I'd probably get myself in trouble.
Yeah,
right.
I think there'd be somebody that passed in their career, and you know how it is. Guys pass in your career, they pay no attention to you, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, you remember me? And we did this and we did that." And you're like, "I just want to hit you."
Yep. Because you tolerate them for so long, and it's like under your skin. And it's like, come on, man, grow up.
I know. And you said, guys like you and me, Q, we just don't go to these things. And I was like, well, I'll go when you go. And if you don't go, I'm not going to go. That's just the way it's going to be.
Exactly. Somebody have my back. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's so funny. Bryan, I so much appreciate you coming on the air. And these guys told me they tried for 4 years to get you. And I said, listen, he's a friend of mine. I think I can make one email, make this thing happen. So I'm so happy that you came on with us. We got to pick your brain a little bit. And, is there anything that you want to push this particular time that you're doing, or?
Really nothing. I mean, there's other stuff that's out there that's going on right now, but just stuff I'm not going to really talk about. And, but yeah, everything's going well. I'm engaged, and so everything's good, man.
Yeah, and you're lucky. You got a woman like me that understands your past and is willing to accept it and embrace your future. And as we spoke about, it's pretty rare for us.
Yeah, and she's a nurse, so that helps even more. So.
Oh my gosh!
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, Bryan, listen, thanks for coming on the show with us, and we really appreciate it. And Drew Skills or Zane Paisley, you got any closing questions for Bryan Clark?
I just want to thank you for coming on, brother, sharing your story with us. I wish you all the best and everything else you got going on, bro.
I appreciate it, man, and thanks. I thank you guys for having me, and hopefully I answered some questions for people.
Oh, you did. You definitely did. And hey, listen, brother, I love you, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, man. You take care of yourself.
Wow, what a great guest was Bryan Clark in the first hour of the show.
Yes,
starting off with another hot one.
Oh my gosh! Listen, we're on a roll. We've done Bryan Clark. We've had Danny Spivey, Waylon Mercy. We've had Les Thatcher.